for Syracuse men's lacrosse against a 4-3 Manhattan side in the Dome. But soon enough, the alarm sirens were blaring. The Jaspers stood above the Orange 1-0 after a quarter of play. So were we going to see the upset of the century take place in the 3-1-5 tonight? Was the 10th ranked team in the nation really about to lose to Manhattan? No, of course not. This is Syracuse men's lacrosse, for crying out loud. The Orange stormed back in the final 3 frames to cruise by the Jaspers 18-2. But did that leave the Cuse with more questions than answers? We've got Chris Shroyer and Grace Piatko to give you those answers about what turned out to be a dominant win. So come along with us. It's Orange Press Pass, and it starts right now. Welcome into Orange Press Pass, recapping Syracuse men's lacrosse 18-2 victory over Manhattan with Chris Shroyer and Grace Piatko. I'm Sam Corcoran. Guys, a very early scare for the Orange, trailing after a quarter of play to Manhattan, but the Orange bounced back, came out with a dominant victory. Chris, what are your first thoughts on this one?
I think you just have to take this game, learn from it, and then move on. The Orange were extremely sloppy to start this game, and that'll work against mediocre teams. You know, for the first 25 minutes of play, the Orange only scored 2 goals, something completely out of the norm for them. And you know, after an 8-day layoff and a great win over Johns Hopkins last Sunday, it might be easy to take a team like Manhattan for granted, and initially in the beginning of the game, it very much looked like that, Grace.
Absolutely, and my first thought is really they pulled off the win 18-2, but it's not a good look for Syracuse. They had trouble with this last season when they lost to Duke 5 goals, and they got off to a slow start as well, and that was in the ACC tournament. Also against Notre Dame, they lost by 2 due to a slow first quarter.
So you're probably wondering what went wrong in the first quarter. What happened in the rest of the game? Well, let's not waste any more time and roll the tape. Syracuse and Manhattan in the Dome. The Orange win the opening faceoff. John Mullen, one of the best in the nation. But that's about all the success they had in the first quarter. Early on, Manhattan working it inside. Drew Heiner a shot. Nice save by Jimmy McCool. But Heiner gets the rebound and finds Twine. Manhattan up 1-0 after 6 minutes of play. Not a goal from SU in the first 10 minutes, and not a goal for the rest of the quarter. Wyatt Hoddle finds Joey Spallina, the guy who can get you the goals. But Chris, Connor Hapward, an unbelievable first quarter.
Yeah, there was a brick wall standing in front of Manhattan's cage today, and his name was Connor Hapward. He had 14 first half saves, 2 more than he had in the entire game in last year's 16-3 loss. He was standing on his head today, Sam.
That's the first scoreless quarter for SU since 2023, but Trey Deer right there pounds it in early in the second to knot the game up at 1. SU ultimately took the lead 3-2. Nice defense from the Orange, but Luke Roa, oh no, tosses it up in the air. Jack Miller takes the deficit to 1. Still a very close game in the second quarter, but from there, SU working it around X, something they do phenomenally well, and Trey Deer puts it home. Grace, it was all SU in the second quarter.
Absolutely, the offense really got into its rhythm, and they found their groove in the second quarter.
A 9-2 lead at the half, still working it with Michael Leo, the man-up goal for the 8th in the half. SU up big now in Manhattan, back to that cruise control they were looking at earlier. Now Joey Spallina with it in the second half in X. He is nasty there. Another goal for him, his 17th on the year, shining in on 200 career points for the Orange. Then Spallina back in X, finds Sam English, wraps around, fires it home. SU up double digits as we enter the fourth quarter. And from there, Chris, the defense really took over.
Oh, 100%, Sam. This is the first time Cuse has held a team scoreless in an entire half since Holy Cross in 2021. That is the definition of lockdown.
Not to mention, leads to a lot of fast break goals, 4 in the second half after 8 Jasper turnovers, and Wyatt Hoddle there to put it away. 14-2 SU. This one well out of reach of the Jaspers. SU just, let's clear the bench, get the bench players some reps, and Owen O'Farrell puts the nail in the coffin. SU takes this one 18-2. Grace, it was a full team effort after the first quarter of play. SU really came out and dominated Manhattan.
Absolutely, Trey Deer had a great day, and Spallina also with those 4 assists. Him and Trey Deer had that connection from the summer playing box lacrosse, and their chemistry was on full display.
And a little bit more on Trey Deer. This was his career high in goals. 4 goals is also his first career hat trick. He is someone that needs to be seeing the orange rotation a little bit more, and he is proving why he deserves to be in the attack rotation going forward.
Well, we don't just have Boots here in our Citrus TV studio. We have Boots in the dome. John Boccio right behind me. John, first of all, you're looking really handsome as always. Appreciate your coverage as always. My question for you, lots of time off for SU. Their last game was on Sunday. Now coming into Tuesday, a lot of rust early on. How did that affect SU?
So the biggest way that it affected SU, and Gary Gate and Joey Spallina touched on this one in the presser, is the fact that it actually gave him a good amount of rest and some mental health days that were much needed in the middle of the season. Gary Gate stressed that a lot, how these extra days in between games were really necessary for them to really clear their minds. And the quote that both Spallina and Gate used after the game was, get back to the basics, right? You pick up a huge win against Johns Hopkins last Sunday, but it comes after 2 pretty bad losses and then a Utah win that wasn't all too impressive from SU. So ultimately, the biggest way that SU used those days off was get a little practice in there, get some time off that was pretty needed mid-season, but ultimately get back into the swing of, okay, this is the basic lacrosse that SU plays game in and game out. This is a really big stepping stone for later in the season as well, just because you get a chance to really review everything.
You doing, John? Chris here. You're a fellow Long Islander, so I know you definitely know ball. And a few weeks ago, Finn Thompson went out against Utah, and that was a little bit shaky for Syracuse in the attack lineup. Trey Deer definitely making the most of his opportunities, scoring a career-high 4 goals today. How have you seen Deer benefit from Thompson's absence, and what do you think this potential attack rotation could look like going forward?
So it's going to be really interesting to see what it looks like going forward. I'll touch upon that in a minute, but ultimately Trey Deer used this mentality of next man up, right? He said, I'm just a lacrosse player. I want to play wherever I can, whether that's in the midfield, that's on attack, wherever they want to use me, I'll go. And that's the mentality that guys like Trey Deer have to have, that backup player to a starter that now goes down, and he was right back ready for action. I mean, you saw it today, 4 goals, which we've been talking about all day long. 3 of those came in the first half. Trey Deer was a monster on attack today. Guy just lives by the crease, and you saw it all day long. The Spallina to Trey Deer connection, it goes from box lacrosse onto the field, right? And Trey Deer has really massively used the Finn Thompson absence to embrace his role in the starting lineup. Now let's look ahead, right, to what this attack line could look like moving forward. It's going to be really interesting. So we know we have 2 staples in the lineup in Joey Spallina and Owen Hiltz. I would assume by the time Finn Thompson gets back, they're likely going to want to work him in off the bench. But then once postseason hits, it's going to be a battle between Trey Deer and Finn Thompson, who Thompson was great earlier on in the season, but Trey Deer is looking really, really promising as the season goes along in these last 2 starts. Finn Thompson was phenomenal against Harvard and really was their only attacker that could score in that game. Owen Hiltz went fairly mute in that one, but ultimately it's going to be very interesting to see the battle between Trey Deer and Finn Thompson looking ahead in this season.
Hey John, Grace here. We talked about it. Scoreless first half, slow start. What was the spark that got the momentum going?
So honestly, they were saying how they executed well in the first quarter, right? Gary Gate, Joey Spallina, Trey Deer, they were all saying, yeah, we just kept on shooting. That's what they told us to do. The defense was playing phenomenal in the first quarter, so SU's offense knew they could always rely on them, but ultimately they outshot the Jacksonville Jaspers they outshot Manhattan by over 20 in the first half, right? That's a clear sign of things are going right, and Jacksonville's coach, or rather Manhattan's coach, touched on this quite a lot in the presser, that his goalie's one of the best in the nation, right? He played so well today, 25 saves for him, a career high from their goalie, and that was massive in this matchup. But ultimately, Gary Gates' message to all the players was just keep shooting. We're doing everything right. You just got to execute in the second, and that's exactly what they did. A 9-1 second tells the whole story of the tale.
John, we appreciate your reporting as always. Can't wait to see you soon. Hope you enjoy your 10, 15-minute walk in the warm weather back to our Waverly Avenue studios. That's enough from John Boccio. We have a lot more to cover on this show. We'll be back from the slow start to the fast you finish. Lots of highs, lots of lows. We got it all coming up next on Orange Press Pass.
Thank you, guys.
Stay with. Welcome back in to Orange Press Pass alongside Chris Shroyer and Grace Piatko. I'm Sam Corcoran breaking down SU's 18-2 win over Manhattan. Guys, the score says a lot. It says that this was a dominant SU win. But really in that first quarter, we've talked about it so much already, a very sluggish start for the Orange. 1-0 for Manhattan after the first quarter. 14 shots for the Orange, 10 of which saved by Connor Hapward. Chris, I was shocked at this first quarter performance from the Orange. I'm assuming you were as well?
Oh, 100%. Syracuse is a team that likes to get off to a fast start. They averaged 4 goals in the first quarter, and especially against this caliber of opponent, Grace, this was very unlike them. And this is the first time Syracuse was held scoreless in the first quarter since the first game of the 2023 season against Vermont. And that Vermont team had hopefuls of winning the American East. This first quarter was also a complete flip from last year's first quarter against the Jaspers. A 7-1 score compared to a 1-goal deficit for the Orange. Absolutely just mind-blowing to me, Grace.
I mean, the shots of the game after the first half, there was 36 shots, and they only had, 9 goals? Like, it was just, the comparison was out crazy, honestly. And the saves, I mean, Syracuse didn't even have a save in the first quarter.
I think a big reason of that was also Connor Hapward,
Absolutely.
He was a monster for the Jaspers in the net. He had 14 first half saves, which is a lot more than he had in the entire game last season against Syracuse. And he had 8 saves in the first quarter, and it's not like Syracuse was taking bad shots. They were firing from everywhere on the field, and they just could not get it past Hapward. He is proving why he has some of the most saves in all of Division I.
It usually doesn't happen when SU starts slow and ends up winning the game. And it doesn't happen when SU starts slow and wins the game by this much. 16 goals to win this game by Grace. A dominant final 3 quarters really propelled Syracuse to winning this game. What did you take away from that?
John O'Dear's squad really stood tall, and the offense was moving the ball so much better. They had 10 assists in the game, and that is where Syracuse thrives. Passing the ball around, getting the ball inside to Trey Deer and Spallina working the X.
And I really just want to hone in on that second quarter because that was absolutely massive for the Orange. They finished the last 9 minutes of the first half, on a 7-1 run. And they were a little rusty to start the game. Obviously, I mentioned that 8-day layoff coming off that Johns Hopkins win. But the last part of this game just looked like the normal Syracuse Orange that we're used to. And in the beginning, Manhattan was playing a lot of ball side defense. If you notice, all the defenders across the field were drawing in and leaving everyone non-ball side, everyone adjacent to the ball open, and Syracuse was starting to take advantage of that because Manhattan began ball watching, and that's when all the cuts and the nice feeds that Syracuse is so used to. begin to work, Grace?
Once they got a big lead, they were able to put in some players that haven't played this season, like Owen O'Farrell and Elijah Brown. They pulled most of their starters after the fourth quarter.
It's kind of crazy. 71 shots for the Orange tonight. They absolutely dominate possession. When you dominate possession, you win games. Another dominant player, Trey Deer. 4 goals for him. Lots of action on the offense from him. Chris really carrying the offensive load throughout the game.
Yes, and my question to John before touched just on this topic. Finn Thompson, his absence is absolutely massive for this Orange squad. Obviously, they're deep enough to compensate for that. But when you have an absence of a star player, you have people stepping up, and Trey Deer is that person. This guy is an absolute gamer. He was a national champion in high school at the coveted Salisbury High School and an All-American as well. He's someone that I've been saying should be seeing the field more, and he's proving it with every opportunity that he's getting. Look at that, 4 goals on 8 shots. That is 50% shooting. That's exactly what you want from an attackman, especially of his caliber, and he's making a case to be almost undeniably in the rotation when Finn Thompson comes back.
He was really finding his footing in this game. He's flourishing with Finn Thompson being out. They really need to utilize the connection of Spallina and Deer. As I mentioned before, they play box together in the summer, and they know what each other is going to do before it even happens. It's like they have twin telepathy.
Well, we've been talking about him for the give or take the last 90 seconds now, so it should come as no surprise to who our Orange Press Pass player of the game is. The catalyst of the offense today, Trey Deer. Number 91 sparked SU with its first goal of the game early in the second, then took off from there with 3 more. It wasn't just a big day for Deer, more like a career one. 4 goals sets a new career high for him. Not to mention, when the Cuse's possessions were sloppy, the sophomore stepped up and scooped 5 ground balls. It seemed like gloom and doom for Coach Gate when he announced that Finn Thompson was going to miss some time, but have no fear, Trey Deer is here. He's filled in real well in Thompson's absence at attack for the 2nd straight game. That's now 2 starts, 2 SU victories, and 2 fantastic games from today's OPP player of the game. And the sky's only the limit for a man who could be the future of SU lacrosse soon. Well, it's time for another break talking about Deer and the rest of the game on OPP, but stay tuned. We'll talk about SU's gauntlet of a schedule and the gauntlet other teams have to get through, known as SU's defense, when we come back.
Did you know dragging chains can spark a wildfire?
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Multiple studies have shown that marijuana can slow both driver reaction and response time, which can be really dangerous. He's here. He's here. Wait. What? I can't drive. Why? My. Oh.
We're back here on Orange Press Pass, recapping Syracuse men's lacrosse 18-2 victory over Manhattan with Chris Shroyer and Grace Piatko. I'm Sam Corcoran. Guys, before we continue talking about this victory, we have some other games to recap on the Hill. In particular, the women's side, Grace, a massive win against Pitt on Saturday and a huge game tomorrow night.
Absolutely. The offense was a little stagnant in the beginning of the game against Pittsburgh, but they're really going to need to step up against Loyola. I guess the win against Pittsburgh wasn't as impressive, but Loyola will get them back on their feet in a winning streak. Loyola, although they aren't ranked, they lost only by 3 to Syracuse last year, and they have one of the best players in college lacrosse right now, Chase Boyles, who had 6 goals in their loss to Syracuse last year. So that'll be a big issue for the defense for Syracuse.
And something that I'm honing in on is the women's softball team just securing their first ranked ACC victory of the season over number 16 Duke. They started off to a program record 11-0 before falling to a tough number 9 Georgia team, but they're slightly falling back down to earth, but they have faced good competition, and a large part of their success has been because of pitcher Madison Knight and Mississippi State transfer Julia Burney. It will be fun to see where the Orange end up at the end of the year.
Hey, let's not forget about Syracuse tennis to a big matchup against a fairly even Georgia Tech coming up soon. Now let's take a look at some of the other lacrosse scores around the nation. Chris, the big one that stands out to me, a top 10 matchup in New Jersey with number 6 Cornell coming out on top big time against Princeton.
Oh, 100%, and that is a future opponent for the Syracuse Orange that we'll get into a little more. Obviously, an absolutely stellar to work on watch list award matchup between CJ Kirst and Coulter Mackesy. Obviously, the Big Red did come out on top, and Princeton will have to do a little bit of soul searching if they want to stay in the top 5.
And St. John's pulled the Philly upset against Penn State. It came down to the last 5 minutes where Connor Davis really came up clutch. And then to Bucknell against Colgate. Colgate is Syracuse's next matchup. Bucknell pulled out that win with 4 minutes left to go.
So some big scores across the nation, but let's turn our attention back to what y'all came here for. It's time to talk about our big pictures, guys. Starting with the lockdown defense today, I got a few stats I want to read off for you guys. 2 goals allowed today. That's the least since 2013 against
Army, baby.
I had to get that out of you, Chris. And only 7 saves for SU, so the goalies did not have to do much work. A shot discrepancy, 71-18 against the Jaspers. Chris, what does this say about SU? Who's the big dog on defense?
I don't know. It's very hard to see. And, one of the big things coming into this offseason for me was Sam Alexo departing. He was a crucial piece to this defense, as well as the offense. He was always down in the offensive zone, getting in on the action. But Michael Grace has been an X factor to me to look for. He was an RIT transfer, 2-time national championship in Division II at RIT, and he has not skipped a beat, and he's shown why he can play with the big dogs in Division I. 17 ground balls on the year so far, 7 caused turnovers, and the one thing that really stands out to me, he only has 1 penalty. As a defender, as a long pole defender at that, being aggressive and playing hard-nosed defense while also not hurting your team by getting stupid penalties really helps, and I think he's really been making his presence felt.
Billy Dwan and Michael Grace really fit well together on the defense, and I think that Michael Grace really solidifies inside effectively.
Now, something else pretty solidified, Syracuse's upcoming opponent schedules, because, I looked at the schedule, guys. It is brutal for SU coming up. All the teams besides one, Virginia, are ranked, and not to mention Virginia is a perennial powerhouse in college lacrosse. Grace, what's the outlook for this upcoming schedule? It's pretty brutal.
You know what? They have their next 4 out of their 5 games are ranked teams, just like we discussed, and it's not going to be easy. Colgate is coming to Syracuse. They're both NY foes, and you know what? We just talked, Virginia, although they aren't ranked, they're always a solid team. There's no easy games left, and all of these teams can get the job done.
100%. I just want to hone in on that Colgate game a little bit more. The Connor brothers, Liam and Rory, are absolutely balling, and they're from around my parts of Long Island, and Long Island is known for good lacrosse, so there's nothing there to be surprised about. But another matchup that will be absolutely huge for the Orange is against Cornell a few games down the road. Just talked about it recently. They just beat Princeton, the number 2 team in the country. Extremely impressive win. And obviously, to Wharton watch list CJ Kirst, he's just an absolute menace on the field, and you cannot stop him. And I really think that this gauntlet, we talked about it, Gary Gate has struggled against ranked opponents, and it's going to be a tough test ahead to see if they can overcome that, Sam.
You also saw right before the goal differential from these teams. Besides Virginia, all of them are in like the 20s, 30s, and 40s. So a lot to overcome for both a dominant SU defense and a pretty good SU offense that we saw today. But right before we talk more about that, we're going to take another quick break here in Orange Press Pass, where Grace and Chris will sound off when we come back. You won't want to miss it. We'll be back shortly.
Did you hear about the pony with a sore throat? He was a little horse. Can I tell you a cat joke? Just kidding. Why couldn't the Why was the basketball court all wet? Why? Because the players kept dribbling all over it. Where the cats go on vacation? New York.
If you need to do something to feel okay to drive, you're not okay to drive. Don't drive buzzed.
We're closing up shop here on Orange Press Pass alongside Chris Shroyer and Grace Piatko. I'm Sam Corcoran. Guys, before we talk about this game more and this lacrosse team, I just want to embrace this new set behind us. I mean, hello? Is this just not sexy?
Feels like I'm in a rocket ship right now.
It's gorgeous. It feels like we're like the real deal, you know? Like we're really on ESPN, maybe.
It's because we are.
Exactly. Well, let's talk about some other teams that are the real deal and look at the rankings. Grace, we just talked about SU's upcoming schedule. There's a lot of familiar names on this top 12 that SU plays later in the year.
Yeah, we're showing the top 12, but the top 20 are really elite. Collectively, they're 115 and 29. That's 79%. They've lost to Maryland, they've lost to Harvard in a really close game, and they beat Johns Hopkins, but they still have to face Notre Dame, Duke, and North Carolina, which are teams they're playing at a really elite level, and they are crucial wins for Syracuse.
And as of yesterday, you see that the rankings changed a little bit from this past weekend with Cornell jumping Princeton. Princeton falling out of the top 5 from being number 2. That was an absolutely massive game for the Ivy League, a usually very competitive conference. And someone else that I want to shout out, another team, the Army Black Knights, 7-0. They have been on fire. Sean Byrne has been an absolute monster in cage. He's actually scored a few goals this season too, and they have a goal differential just south of 70 goals. That is absolutely unheard of, and they're going to look to keep rolling into championship weekend potentially.
Hey, if you ever spent 5 minutes in a room with Chris, he's going to talk about the Army Black Knights, just for what it's worth. But our time on OPP has almost come to a close. But before we say goodbye, there's one more thing our analysts have to get off their chests.
All right, look, 18-2 win, that's pretty good. When you look at the score and you didn't watch the game, you would say, hey, that's a pretty dominant win. But if you watch the first 25 minutes of this game alone, you will know that Syracuse really needs to clean some things up, because buckle up, there's a bumpy road ahead. 4 of their next 5 opponents are ranked, something that Gary Gate and company have struggled with in the past. The Orange are going to really need to clean up some things on the offensive and defensive end. But one thing that has been good for them is John Mullen. He has been a monster at the faceoff X, and especially in a game like this today against Manhattan, that is something that really helps as you can secure other possessions, more possessions at that. And when you're turning the ball over, can't find success on offense, those key possessions are really going to be crucial down the stretch. And when you're playing the likes of Duke, Notre Dame, Cornell, and now even Colgate, who's been absolutely on fire, Virginia kind of falling out of that, I think that the Orange are really going to need to take this game and learn from it and apply it to the future. Grace, what are you saying?
Let's talk Joey Spallina. I think he's underrated this season. Who initiates the ball movement? Who gets the ball going? Who is packed into these players? It's Joey Spallina. I know there's so much hype around him, but I still think he's underrated, especially this season. He had 4 assists in just this game, and I think down the line he's going to come up clutch in those really hard, close games against Duke, UNC, Notre Dame. He's going to be that guy who stands out and gets the win for Syracuse.
Well, another opportunity for Joey Spallina to come up clutch. It's part of the bumpy road, as you mentioned, Chris. It's an in-state foe. No, not that one. Not Cornell, the one that's been the long-standing rival. How about the Red Raiders of Colgate, 18th in the nation, absolutely rolling through the season this year. Chris, what's your key to the game for this one?
My key to the game is, just get off to a fast start and keep your foot on the gas pedal. This Colgate team is one that you cannot fall behind to. Their recent loss to Bucknell, they still put up 17 goals. It's really going to come down to locking in on the defensive end and just keeping your foot on the gas, Grace.
I think this is like a matchup that is kind of similar to Harvard, and I think this is their time to redeem their spot in the top contenders.
A good chance to redeem a gauntlet of the schedule. If you're Syracuse Men's Lacrosse, you got to get off to a good start, especially just taking the cake against an in-state foe. I think that's absolutely massive. But that'll do it for our time here on Orange Press Pass. For our producers, Gabe, Perrin, his entire squad, Chris Shroyer, Grace Piatko, I'm Sam Corcoran saying so long and have a great night.